Hey, it's Dr. Amanda with Straightsmile Solutions, straightsmilesolutions.com, and today we're going to talk about a term that I maybe came up with, but I call it long comprehensive. It's a type of, it's comprehensive treatment, but it's long. So it's kind of when you start comprehensive treatment when the child is in late mixed dentition. Sometimes you're going to get a patient who maybe has they're borderline. Like, do we do phase one? Do we do comp? So obviously, I like to say A plus B doesn't necessarily equal C, and that the price point is usually going to be more if you do it in two pieces instead of doing it in one longer piece. It's just how it is because we're taking initial records, doing a little treatment, then final records, then retainers maybe, then and more initial records, and then treatment, and then final records. So we're getting two sets of records and maybe retention. So if we just kind of blast through it and take a little break in there, maybe not, just kind of take it easy with the treatment, that eliminates two sets of records and maybe some time and maybe some retainers, which to me should be cheaper. So obviously, there's a lot of factors that go into it. First of all, don't take a long comprehensive case, which might be 2.5 to even 3 years. It doesn't mean you're going to have braces on the whole time or anything fixed on the whole time. No, you're probably going to take breaks, have some evaluation periods where they're going to be coming in and just evaluating. You're probably going to be working on the bite first, getting them out of trouble, the interceptive portion first before you put on the braces or the clear aligners, which is going to come in the second phase. So yeah, it's like phase one, phase two, but we're doing it all in one billing. So it's a D80-80 instead of a D80-60. So it should be cheaper for the patient. People are generally charging, but if you are in network with one of these DSOs or PPOs or something, they may fix the portion of what you can charge. So you have to keep that in mind. You don't want to lose money on the case. Also, you have to make sure that parents know that this is a very long commitment, perhaps a 2.5 to 3 year commitment with some breaks in there. But with the doctor, it's a commitment. So if they start it, and if they decide to move or they decide they don't want to deal with it, they're not necessarily getting a refund. So because everything is front loaded with treatment planning and everything like that. So if they decide to move out of state or out of the city or out of the country, they are going to have to find another provider, and it's not just going to slide and transfer over. Like, they're going to have to recontract, who may charge something completely different. They may end up paying twice. So unless this parent is 100% sure they're sticking around the area, I don't recommend a long comprehensive treatment, first of all. Other issue you might want to keep in mind is just compliance. I mean, the nice thing about doing things in phase one versus phase two is that you get a little chunk up front. You get to kind of sample it with either a removable or fixed compliance. You're not fully committed to this family and this patient, because if this patient turns out to be a non-compliant patient and a pain in the booty, and the parent too, you may not want to deal with them for 3 years. That's a huge marriage. There's marriages that are shorter than that, So I mean, especially if you're seeing them every month, every 2 months, every 8 weeks, every 10 weeks, it's a huge commitment, and their schedules might change and your hours might change, and there's a lot of things that I know I'm kind of going off into the weeds here, but I'm telling you that there's a lot of things that can happen. Or maybe they just decide they don't like you, or maybe you don't like them. So like I said, a 3-year marriage is a long marriage, a long commitment with a patient. So pick your long comprehensive patients very carefully. I prefer to take patients who maybe already know. If you are a general or a pediatric dentist and you already have a long-standing relationship with the family as a GP patient, then it's probably fine. We as orthodontists sometimes are a little more hesitant to take something that big of a commitment because it may not be a great fit. So those things are all things you want to keep in mind. Obviously they need to have immaculate hygiene if I'm going to commit to them for 3 years. If they're dirty, that's a no-go. That's more of a phase one situation, because I might not decide that they're ready for phase two. And what if we already paid for it, right? I don't want to deal with refunds. And then also keep in mind that, remember, dental age, chronological age, and skeletal age don't always line up. You can have someone that has 8 permanent teeth in who might be 12. You can have someone that has all their permanent teeth in who might be 8. You can have someone who, recently someone mentioned, the girl is done growing, she's had her period, but she's 9 and she only has a few permanent teeth. Well, yeah, that happens. So all these things have to be taken into account in terms of if we're starting phase one or we're starting a long comprehensive. So just keep all this into account. Also, just in terms of how you're going to finish the case, if you're going to make it a long, comprehensive case, you better make sure you're very comfortable with the finish. And if all the teeth aren't fully erupted yet, what if one of them gets stuck, like a second molar or a canine? What if you end up needing an impaction surgery? If you take this case, you are committed to no matter what the dice rolls. So if you're not prepared to take a really hard exposure case or something, I mean, usually I can tell from a pano if I think there's a risk, but sometimes things happen that are outside your control and there's surprises. If you take this as a long comprehensive, you have to deal with whatever the case deals you. So whatever is not erupted that gets stuck, that's your problem. That doesn't mean that you have to eat the cost on that, you know, and when you're writing up the treatment plan, if there's a lot of unknowns, you have to say reevaluate this, reevaluate that. Additional fees may be indicated. If something gets impacted, exposure surgeries might be indicated. I know it's like a major one-off, but it totally happens, you know, and sometimes it's a surprise. I mean, it'll happen. And you can have parents who are really upset if you create a treatment plan and you didn't mention those one-offs, and you may have to end up eating the cost on some of this. So keep that in mind too. Lastly, if you're planning to finish the case with braces or Invisalign, I'm assuming you're doing one or the other, remember, if you are doing phase one, I'm going to go backwards and talk about the negatives of that. If you are doing phase one, there are times when these teeth, you know, like the canines are going to start dropping down. Let's say it could have been a long comprehensive and they're like, no, we just want to commit to phase one. Well, if the canines start dropping down and they start dropping down funky, there's no way that you're going to be able to just straighten these 4 teeth only without getting on the back teeth. So sometimes you're essentially giving away free phase 2 treatment because there's no way to straighten the front teeth, assuming you had to straighten them. Like, let's say like you had to consolidate space in order to fix a bite or something like that, or to get something out of harm's way. And sometimes you just have to get on all these back teeth, even though they're only contracted for phase one, which normally is front 4 teeth. No one says it only has to be front 4 teeth. So, and you can't just say to the parents, well, no, now I'm only going to we're just not going to do the braces because I'd have to do them all. You'd have to upgrade. No. If you said that you're doing phase one, you need to finish the phase one. And if that means you have to put braces on more teeth than you expected, well, surprise, you're doing a lot of free orthodontic work and you'd have to eat the cost. So like I said, either way, in these kind of unknown territories, you're rolling the dice a little bit either way. So I can't always answer that question for you. So, but that's why it's great to run these cases by an orthodontist first. All right, thanks.